What's up, Zox fam? We're back with some more Etheria Restart. Now, we're going to be getting into my top 10 game-changing animuses. Now, this might vary for you because there's so many good animuses in this game, and I would even say there's a lot of different supporting arguments. But I'm going to be getting into my top 10 personal, and I want to just jump right into this because there's so much to talk about. Now, because this unit actually just came out, I want to talk about her and put her first on this list is actually Nelu, okay? I feel like Nelu is easily a game-changing unit in the current state of the game that we are in, because this unit, again, on paper, I cannot stress how, like, I've seen, there are so many like comparison comments, between her and Lilium, where a lot of players are looking at it like, hey, this unit's kit just gives us more speed and we already got another character that can do vulnerability. We don't need her. But she literally has so many different components in her kit that actually caters to some of the biggest gimmicks that we have to fight within the game, right? And of course, with that, the skill 2, the skill 3 bring you that vulnerability speed up, which is super, super huge. Must invest, in my opinion. The skill 2 is giving you the ability to hit 4 times, but with that 4 hit count, you're getting a turn meter push as well as a heal going to the person with the highest attack, which is typically your DPS. And so this is something that I really feel like just makes her the cream of the crop when we're talking about supports in the game, because she's enabling your whole party, she's scaling your overall damage, and then she's making it easier for you to counteract certain gimmicks and just making your DPS have a much easier time staying alive and getting their turn. So I think that is just pretty straightforward with her. Another game-changing unit for me personally, I got to actually say is honestly Freya. Yeah, I feel like Freya, again, another support, is pretty game changing. She actually is just a unit that's able to just kind of do some of everything. So when we're looking at like, attack up buff, you got the nightmare for debuffing so you can scale your damage. You also have the skill 2, which is a defense up buff with the dream weave, which can purify debuffs when you're having them come in contact with you when this is already applied. The skill 1 then has the extra additive of noting her passive, which is basically that when you buff, you are able to push turn meter. When you debuff, you're able to reduce your enemy's turn meter. And this is something that I think that, like, when you're talking about like game changing or just having a character just be slotted in, all she needs to basically do to do well for you is to exist on your team. And that's something that I think that, like, with a character that requires 0 investment, that's pretty game changing. It's pretty broken. So that, I will say, is like super, super insane. Now, I want to throw this character in, and I think it's just because it is like who the character is. I think we could all acknowledge that, again, this is in no specific order, but coming in at number 3, we got to talk about Yelli. All right. So I feel like Yelli definitely is game changing because she can literally be your main DPS for everything. And it's one of those things that I think is kind of like, when you don't have her, I'm going to be really interested in seeing, like, say players that have been playing like maybe 3-4 months in finally get their hands on a character like Yelli, or even 6 months in and finally get their hands on a character like Yelli, how much of a difference that's going to feel for them. Because the thing with this character is that she's so self-sufficient. She actually is now, with a lot of better builds, you're starting to notice that people aren't even running defense breakers, right? They're just running any character that can amplify damage. And this is what I've come to find is, like, for example, her paired up with Nelu is like literally emulating things like the pairing of her and Lily, which is absolutely insane. Of course, with the skill 3 crit rate up buff for herself, which allows you to run a minimum of 70% crit rate, defense down, which is like insane for her to be able to apply both a buff and a debuff that basically enables her in her own kit. Then the skill 2 is allowing her to have extra follow-up chances, and that's a really, really important investment for her. But even with the skill 1, she's able to steal buffs, and then also she's dealing damage with this. So she's just very, very self-sufficient. Even on the revelation for PvE, still really solid. In PvP, still really solid on the revelation as well. So she's just an all in all, like, across the board, just an insane character when it comes down to her overall, value. Now, I feel like since we're on the topic of LDs, we might as well rip the Band-Aid off and talk about Lily, right? I will say, I think Lily is game changing in the sense if you're trying to do speed clears, right? I think that this is something that I think is something that really wasn't explained that well, is that Lily is a great character when you're trying to do things in a much faster burst. But when you're talking about like longer form or longer duration fights, sometimes it can become problematic because there's nothing in her kit that actually helps you stay alive. And this is one of the things that I think that when we talk about the comparison of her and Doki Doki, why they can still work together if you want to use them on the same team. And even why in some cases, I would argue that Doki Doki would be the like unit to kind of supplement or replace her if you're going for more slower comps, just simply because of the fact that the amp and the ramping that you get from Doki Doki is for more longer form setups, right? And that's the kind of the intent behind it. But definitely Lily, I gotta say, like first and foremost, just in terms of like out of the box, gives you immediate value when you're really looking at like what investments really required, which is really just a skill 1 for her, which is the follow-up attack that you're going to be getting from the ally. Her value is just really, really high. And there's a reason why a lot of people did reroll for her. But I think it is great to say that, and it feels good to be able to say that now we're at a place where having Lily or not having Lily, you're not locked out of content, right? So I think that that's the biggest thing. So definitely for a game-changing unit, I had to feel like, definitely felt like she was a part of this list. Now, the next character that I want to talk about that I feel like has actually been pretty impactful, and I would even like say at this point, definitely is a game changer if you have her or don't have her. And I think I just went past her actually, is Valyrian, right? So Valyrian, I feel like when we're talking about sustain, for a vast majority of your progression is going to be what are your go-to sustainers. I mean, we're talking about the, death prevention, the shielding, the basic buff filling, which, if you don't have the attack, she'll give you attack. If you don't have the defense, she'll give you the defense, crit rate up, speed, etc. Right? She is just super insane when we're talking about, the layering that she has for your party, just being able to keep your team alive. And the fact that she's like, not like your average supports where she needs to be super fast. She offers invincibility. She also has a heal over time. And that's something that I think that like when you're looking at the layering is like, even though she doesn't directly just outright heal you, she can still offer some healing capability, which is still really strong. And I feel like for a character like Valyrian, this is a character for a vast majority of content that can just kind of get slotted in. I mean, you see her still in a lot of in-game shell dungeons. You'll still see her in a lot of in-game threshold dungeons. You'll see her in a lot of point scaling stuff for keeping teams alive. Like she's just across the board, in my opinion. As soon as you get access to a character like her, I get why they put her in the dollar pack, honestly. So definitely a super uber game changer for sure. So yeah, definitely felt like she definitely needed to be on the list. Another damage dealer, I gotta mention him just because it's kind of like he's here, and I know somebody's gonna be like, how are you not gonna mention him? Is Dating, right? Like I think we all know Dating's value, but I think that one of the things that comes up constantly, what I've been seeing recently is, if I build, say, like for example, I have Yelli, why would I build Dating? And the thing is that there are going to be a lot of different pieces of content that are going to come up where having him and her are going to be great, because there might be some things that lock her attribute out. There might be some things that lock his attribute out. There are even some dungeons where Dating actually slightly performs better just because he's able to operate or just has a better synergy with certain setups. So it just all kind of depends on what exactly you're experiencing. But I still don't regret the investment on this character at all, even at this point. I never regret it in the first place, but I feel like for what it's worth, like he's still extremely strong character. He's uber strong, actually. He's just not able to self-facilitate himself like she does, but that's okay, right? Because you have those units that can basically defense break for him and do all the other jazz that you need. But definitely as the 6th pick, I just feel like he's definitely a character you have to have on the list. Like if we're talking about game changers, right? Another unit that I feel like is definitely a big game changer is definitely going to be Viper. right? I feel like Viper is definitely a really, really good unit. And considering that, like with Viper, he's just one of those characters that out the box, you're able to get some value from with the skill 3 being able to reduce attack, speed down. You got with the investment, at least, you're then able to dispel 2 buffs. This is like one of the biggest combinations that like honestly really handles bosses really well, and just most content, reducing that attack and making sure they don't go as fast as you, right? And then having a passive that actually reduces damage that you take from crits is huge. And then also on top of that, the counter chance is something that really makes his gimmick just kind of flourish, with him then being able to proc his skill 3 based off of the stacks that he gets from his skill 1 for the serpent skin. So that, I think, all in all, definitely is something that I feel like when you have access, like there's some people that are missing Viper, it's like really hard if you don't have, like, say like you're just one of those individuals, you don't have like Heinrich, right? Your stripping options are like kind of limited. It's like Viper, there's Hoden, you have Yang that you'll use in certain cases, but Viper is definitely one of the more predominant, more consistent strippers for the least amount of investment in the game. So yeah, definitely a character I feel like is pretty game changing, even all the way up until this point. Now, moving on, we are going into, is this number 8, right? We're at 8. Now, another game changer, I will say for me personally, I'm going to give it to Fuchi. I'm going to give it to her because I feel like for, again, kind of similar to what I explained for Freya, light investment. I mean, we're talking about like literally no lattice investment required, but this character is able to offer shield. I think the pairing with her and Fortissimo is actually really, really strong. But even some of the harder like dungeons, again, like a point in case that I was making with like Nelu, is that even when she came out, she was helping people be able to clear things like Sharon, who a ton of players were having difficulty with. She came into the game and just kind of infiltrated PvP, became one of the best supports in PvP even. And then even when we're just looking at her overall utility, like I took her into Ember Track and she's great in there. Used her in Anasync Echoes. Like she's such a good overall like character. The skill 3, like I said, with it being able to give you the shield, the Moonlit Veil is such a strong ability. And it plays really well into the Fortissimo, because Fortissimo, I think, maxed out on a 2-turn cooldown. So like that's like basically always giving you excess healing. And I mean, the amount of healing you can get from that on top of the shield is nuts. And then you're still getting the turn meter push with that, which is like really strong. So again, no investment required, but this character, in my opinion, really does turn things up a notch on accounts, and really does give you a ton of immediate value. So yeah, I could not mention her, especially because of how she just kind of like implemented or infiltrated the game not too long ago and just kind of changed things. Another game-changing unit, and I'm going to throw him in here. It might be a little bit biased. It might be. It's Red Kachi. Okay. I feel like I want to give this nice spot between him and Vice, because they're both R rarity units. Him and Vice definitely kind of take this for me, just because a lot of like, especially now with where Kachi is at, he's so much more consistent. He's a character I use. I mean, even in like a lot of the what was that portal mode that we had? But we just had that event where you could go through the 2 portals. Kachi was going crazy in there for me. And I was using him in Ember Track. We obviously seen him in Nico Nana, Shadow Flame Hoyan. This dude has so much value. And the craziest thing is that then on top of that, he's able to, with not only the skill 3, being able to stun and then having the turn meter pushback, but the skill 2 has the attack up with the cooldown of the Animus skills, which is something that ends up being like one thing that you kind of want from a character. And there's not a ton of characters that are able to offer that, right? Like you have Tsukiyomi, you have characters like, say, for example, Mia, who's able to give you that cooldown. You have what's your name? Kazio, the Reverie. Oh, no, it's not Reverie. It's Kazio Kazumi. Yeah, right. And then you also have him. And for the investment costs, and then the other utility that he has, I feel like this unit absolutely changed a lot of things on my account, even with me having some of the more higher end units accessible, just because of the fact that now, especially after the buff, he's just so much more consistent. And on top of that, you pair him up, like I'll still use him with my Lily. And that's like doubling up on that rotation for your DPS. Like it is insane. Even his pairing with Nelu is really insane. So I got to say, like, I definitely got to give him that. And then of course, can't forget to mention Vice. I feel like Vice got a lot of players on slower comps through a lot of content. I still feel like he's that guy, especially when you're looking at like those first clears and getting like acclimated into those like pieces of content. Again, turn meter pushback, AoE attack down. Also then having a passive that allows him to be able to remove debuffs, inflict debuffs. And then also then being able to purify a debuff when he's able to heal the ally with the lowest HP percentage as well. And then having a taunt paired up with that. And that's like kind of what plays into his gimmick. You put him on like a Fortissimo. This guy heals honestly like a ton. Like you would think, and it kind of almost makes him feel like he's a higher rarity unit, which is the crazier part. So I feel like his value definitely very, very game changing. Got a lot of players do a lot of stuff in this game. So I feel like I got to give him his flowers for sure. And for the very last one, this one I think for me is definitely, it's not hard, but I think it's just, it's kind of one of those things where I see people say it kind of often. It's like they say, and they go with the phrase, I'm Clausless. I got to give it to Claus, right? I feel like Claus is definitely game changing. There are a lot of ways around using Claus, but I feel like for what Claus does specifically, it is definitely extremely unique. One of those things that I think that when we're talking about skill 3s with a defense break speed down, this hacking in progress, which evolves into hacking, which is basically increasing your damage, making sure that you're taking less damage, which is huge of a combination, into a skill 2, which will rotate your team and take, a turn meter away from the enemy and give it to yourself. There's so much value that kind of goes into units like Claus. I just feel like she definitely was a unit for me that changed a lot of my progression. Obviously, Doki Doki, God tier. I used her for my first Terra Matan clear. Dude, you could use her into a lot of the shell dungeons. And then, of course, for some of the like longer form stuff, she's great. The one area I haven't really seen her excel too much in yet has been like PvP, unfortunately. But I will say that overall utility, it's still extremely high. And she's another character that doesn't require a lot. So for me, these would be, the units that I feel like on my account gave me the craziest amount of value and really helped me with progressing and pushing content. So I'm interested to know who your top 10 are, because like I said, it definitely can vary based off of your experience, maybe what you might have gotten first. And even for those that might not have some of these, your top 10 will vary just simply because of accessibility. So let me know in the comment section down below who your top 10 is. But that's going to be that with this one, guys. Everyone, stay blessed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.